So welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a nice lunch break and are now in good shape for continuing with the next session. So let's see if we have all our panelists in place. Yes, I think we have. So if you could please turn on your cameras, then it's easier to see you. So we are now moving into what I usually say is the most important part of these events, which is when we talk to and with the end users with disabilities. So we have a very distinguished panel with us today. Agnes Kojc from the Cerebral Palsy Europe. She's part of the executive board and a youth representative from Slovenia. So hello, Agnes, welcome.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me here.
And then we have Jonathan Elebjörk Wahlström, who is a member of the board of the International Federation of Hard of Hearing Young People and also co-chair of the European Disability Forum Youth Committee. Super long title, but very good to have you here, Jonathan.
Thank you so much, and I look forward to our discussion today.
Thank you. And you're from Sweden, I should also say that. And then, last but not least, we have Lydia Fisher, who is a self-advocate for Inclusion Ireland and also Inclusion Europe, and you're based in Ireland. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So I don't know if it's just me, but I don't have the speakers highlighted. Maybe it's just my setup. So I would like to start with asking you if you could please briefly describe how you use the internet and if you are using any assistive technology or what accessibility features are important to you and then something around the challenges. So I don't know, maybe Jonathan, if you would like to just describe your personal situation so that our audience today understand your situation.
Yeah, sure. I think this question was a little bit hard to answer, to just answer how do you use internet, because in a way, at least for me, and I believe for many other 20-somethings, the internet is such an integrated part on how we live our lives or how we make our living. I work through the internet, I socialize through the internet. If I do something, so to say, in the real life, it's probably booked through the internet. So I think it's one important thing to keep in mind when we speak about how we use the internet. But if we speak about challenges for a hard of hearing person such as myself, what is a concern or a challenge is mainly the access to auditive or audiovisual media of different kinds or elements on websites. It can be videos or sound notifications if it's in an application, for example, or other parts, which means that at least the different users have different solutions to this. But for me, I use captions a lot and rely quite heavily on them when there's video content, for example. But I am also quite reliant on the quality of the sound for the video, so for recordings such as podcasts or other kinds of audio recordings. I think I stopped there.
Yeah, very good. So very good explanation. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Agnes, what about you? What's your relationship with the internet?
Yeah, just if I refer to Jonathan, internet has become great part of my life as well. Especially in my profession, I work as a translator and also as an interpreter sometimes, but mostly I work with written text, and I use internet for both for my personal use, such as hanging out with friends, socializing, interactions, and also for work. And when it comes to work, I find very difficult to use translation tools. I know this is a very specified category, but translation tools are not so commonly accessible for people with disabilities. I don't know why is that, but this is the problem that I encountered, for example, even in college. And my disability is a little bit more, I would say, difficult to understand when it comes to internet and website use, because I have cerebral palsy, and our condition is very much, it varies from one users to another, because one person with cerebral palsy may be hard of hearing as well, beside having an ordinary moving problems and coordination problems, etc. And they can also be visually impaired. And these factors all influence on how they use the internet. In my personal case, I shall say that I do not have personally much difficulties with internet use, except for example, text formats. I find it hard to read smaller letters. Also, the composition of sites, how the website is designed. It is very important that colors are properly in contrast with the text on the website, so that it's easier to read. And also, it is important that the format is large enough so you can read it without extra zooming in. And this is also the case with me. I have to zoom in practically every website because I find it hard to read when it's small. So I need larger formats. And these are the main difficulties that I encounter. Besides, for example, when it comes to, I don't know, different pop quizzes or interactive websites, a short time limit is also a problem. So I have to have enough time to click with the mouse on certain parts of the website or text or links. So the speed is also a problem with me.
Well, it's not a problem with you, but with the interfaces, I
Yeah,
would
with
say.
the internet, yeah.
Because it's never the user, it's always the
Yeah,
interface
it's always the internet.
to improve, right? So now we move to Lydia. Can you say something about so it seems like everyone is using the internet to everything, and I know that you are also doing that, but could you please describe how you are using computers and smartphones and all of that?
For me, the internet is important because I use it in work and I use it in my personal life. I use the internet as Google as a voice. Sometimes it's very hard for me to spell things, so I use the voice things for it to sound as words for me, for it to spell words. And the internet is important because I get to do loads of things in it, but I also need loads of support. Sometimes I like to go traveling, and sometimes it's not clear, so I have to ask people to support me and people to help me to do simple things like booking a hotel or something. And being able to use the internet is very powerful because everything is in the internet. If you do not know how to use the internet, you kind of lost.
Yeah, that's very true. But so you're using it also, you're using kind of internet like your own assistive technology by spelling via
Yes.
Google. That's an interesting way of using Google. I don't think that when they created Google they thought of it as a spelling machine, but of course it's a very good way of using it. So I love that. So thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Like I have more, like everyone wants to get the word support, and we can do lots of things, like many websites on the servers not successful, which created barriers for us.
Yeah.
For example, applying for disability benefits, accessible support service, online healthcare information, take part in voting.
Yeah, so those are some examples of what can be really difficult, I think, and especially now connected to what we talk about today, which is this legislation on the public sector. So absolutely the support services and social benefits and all of that, that is, of course, making this like Catherine Newton of EDF said in early this morning, that it's not just for the businesses and the internal market, but it's about human rights for people with disabilities, because there's so much in the public sector authority services for citizens that are extremely important for all of us, and then of course including everyone, no matter of the ability. So we are here to celebrate kind of a birthday or an anniversary today, which is this first EU-wide legislation. So I wanted to ask Agnes if you have seen any improvement in public sector websites and apps, so governments or local governments, if you see them becoming better or worse, or not being not moving in any direction when it comes to what is important for you. Can you say something about that?
I have seen it both on local level and also on the national level in Slovenia, for example. And I must say, I'm very proud of my own university, University of Maribor, because when they renewed their website, they asked students with disabilities, different groups, either hard of hearing, blind, all kind of different disabilities, to fill in the survey, and they also organized little focus groups on what features would they prefer to in order to have the faculty website or the university website completely accessible. And I think this was the example of a very good practice where decision makers, so to say, and designers actively involved the target group into cooperation. And this is also a great example for future as well. And therefore, our new website, university website, and also the websites of particular faculties, members of the university, are very accessible. And it's not difficult to use the website anymore, either for freshmen or older students. So I think this is the example of good practice.
Oh, definitely. If everyone involved users with disability in design and development, I think we could all kind of we as experts we could retire and we wouldn't have to work more because that would solve a lot. I'm quite sure. So I'm glad to hear that. I know some of the professors at the Marburg University. They are very, very good people. So it doesn't surprise me that you take them as a good example. But that's good to know.
And also we organize some kind of revision and follow-ups on what other features and accessibilities should we use in the future. So the situation is regularly updated.
So a continuous work.
Yeah, continuous, yeah.
That's very good. So
yeah.
Good example. Thank you. And Jonathan, did you see any improvement? I mean, with the Web Accessibility Directive, public sector websites had to have, at least for pre-recorded videos and audio, they have to be captioned now, and that was kind of more or less optional in most member states before. So have you seen that increase or improvement, or how is that?
I would say that, at least in a Swedish context, the difference from 5 years ago till now are quite visible. Right now, I would say that if I see a pre-recorded video on a governmental body's website, I can pretty much expect it to be at least made possible for me to take part of in some way. It can maybe be a transcription. It doesn't necessarily in all applications are captioning, but it's possible to take part of it, and we have absolutely, in my opinion, seen a development in this where more and more videos are becoming accessible in this way. I think that another thing that might be worth mentioning that I think is a good example of that sometimes technology at the end of the chain when the video is published is not everything, is that we actually saw quite a big improvement in how videos like the one webinar that we are in now was recorded, and what effort to sound and clarity, for example, was put into that from the pandemic, where we started to work from home and where we started to have more of these conferences and Zoom settings. We can actually see quite a lot that the awareness of how sound quality might affect recordings or meetings, and that it's important to make sure that the sound is working good, is actually much higher after the pandemic, because uh, we become in an everyday manner much more exposed to the consequences of bad sound environment, in my opinion. Another thing that I would say is a much more recent development, but nevertheless a very important one, is that for video conference solutions that is used, for example, by hospitals or by public bodies, a problem that has been for quite a while for those solutions have been that they do not allow the user to change which input or outputs that are being used, which is very important for hard of hearing persons such as myself, because that means if you can change, for example, which headphones that you wish to use, you can connect it to assistive devices that streams the sound to your hearing aid, which ensure that the quality works. And that is something that we see, that I've seen been implemented in more and more of these platforms, but is really a development that is important, and that we see that there is changes being made.
Yeah, I think the interoperability of the whole value chain or production chain is extremely important, maybe especially for people who are hard of hearing, but because this is what we see in many cases, that you may have a hearing aid that works only in some cases or together with some devices, and then when one place in this chain is updated, then the rest kind of falls apart. So we are working on better interoperability requirements in the updated standard. So hopefully that will be better in the future. But I think this is kind of a topic for the industry and for the accessibility community and experts to keep working on, because there are different barriers in different environments, I think, for sure. But I'm happy that you both have seen improvements and that things are moving in the right direction. That's good. Otherwise, kind of the birthday party becomes a bit negative, which would not be good. So Lydia, when you and I talked before this meeting, we were talking about how when things are changing, because the kind of technology change and things are being updated and you are required to have new apps and all of that. Can you talk a little bit about this kind of the changing environment and how that affects your way of using technology?
Okay, some organizations are really trying their website. For example, in Ireland, there are better online servers about how people can get support about making decisions, and the electric company in Ireland has also tried to become better in, and it make easy to read voice information available. this is really important so we can vote in our country.
Yeah, so that's kind of an improvement. But what we talked about, what I was aiming for was what you told me a story about how you find it that you one day you come to your work and you use Zoom and they have moved things around, or you open another program. So can you say something about that? I thought that was a good story.
And for me, when Zoom came first, it was easy to just click on it and you bring you on the Zoom, the link. But sometimes you have to put the password and the ID on the Zoom, and it's a little bit difficult and sometimes it's frustrating because if the meeting starts at 9:30 and you trying to play around with it, it's not really good.
No, so not only is it sometimes difficult to add the password, but it's also that it's different, right? That sometimes you have to do it and sometimes you don't. So it's not standardized. Yeah. Mm. So that is.
Yes, and sometimes you have to turn it off and turn it on back on for it to work.
Yeah, that's a golden rule of everything with technology. Turn it off and turn it on and hope that it works the next time. That I use that all the time. So I want to ask a question also from the audience here. If you find that there are any best practices when it comes to the feedback mechanism, and I don't know, we didn't really talk about that in this group before, but there is a requirement in the legislation that public sector bodies have to have a possibility for users to provide feedback if something is not working. So have any of you tried that to kind of, it's like a soft complaint to tell the public sector body that this is not working for me and you should meet the requirements or provide me with this information in another format? Does any one of you have any experience with that?
Well, I have used customer service chat before, and I don't know if that's a similar thing, but it helped me a lot when I didn't understand or when I didn't I couldn't find some parts of the website. I think it was some information I searched and I asked the customer service, where can I find it? And they answered it. So, yeah.
If I may add, I think that this touches as well on one thing that is a core element to most feedback loops and the times where we ask people for feedback, because at least psychologically for me as a user, it's important that if I take the time to write, maybe not a complaint, but to ask about something or to provide feedback, I also want to get something back from that. That can be a thank you, we will consider this. But if I do not get that, but just get some kind of a message that we will reply swiftly, and then the reply never comes, that becomes something you do once, maybe twice, but after a while it feels like it's not something that actually leads to something, and you stop doing it. So I really think that it's important, as for most situations in our work or everywhere, to actually make sure that feedback gets back to the user who submits a question about accessibility, for example.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And the intention of the legislation is that you should get some kind of response, and that that's written in the implementing acts that the public sector body must reply within 2 weeks, and otherwise you can escalate the errand. But we know also from research that it doesn't work as well in all countries. But when it does work, I think it's a very powerful tool. So Lydia, you are usually very verbal. So do you usually complain or tell people if you find something that is not working? Are you telling people, or are you shying away and not saying anything?
With the feedback, I do not really use it. I live in a service, so if I do not understand something, I go to my carers and they help me. But
you're part of the focus group with the Decision Support Service, aren't you? They set up a specific feedback that's easy for you to give feedback.
yeah, we I'm in a group called the Decision Making Service, the new service in Ireland. So I'm part of it. We get the feedback, give them feedback for them to make the law more easier to understand and the law more easy. But yeah,
They set up a specific feedback group with people who maybe find it difficult to access feedback systems online. So they have an in-person focus group that gives that chance for feedback every quarter. So it was a new system because they realized they were getting feedback from lots of people, but maybe not the people who were actually using their website.
So the discussion is not really about the feedback systems that are existing in different countries, but the personal experience from the users in the user panel here. So we have another question, and that is what could be potentially difficult when providing feedback. So if you would like to provide feedback, Lydia, what would make it easy for you to do that?
I suppose for me, I will have to tap it out and then ask somebody to read it, and then if it's right, if it sounds properly, I send it to whoever I'm meant to be sending it to. But I will not go out of my way to give feedback on Google. Like I will ask one of my carer, one of my supporter to help me before go that length.
So with a little personal assistance, you would be willing to provide feedback if you got help from a person. Yeah. And Jonathan, what do you think? Do you have any examples of feedback mechanisms that, apart from not receiving any feedback on the feedback, but more of a technical or user experience way, what could be difficult or be a barrier for you to provide feedback?
I would say that I don't know if I have a great example of that actually, but I would say that one thing that is important is that there are different different ways that you can provide this feedback. Sometimes certain forms are supposed to be used, or certain contact ways, for example, phone or a certain ticketing system or stuff like that. And I think it's important, given that people with disabilities can have different needs, and what doesn't work, as we have clearly showed in this panel today, can be different things, that you actually have a broad definition of where you take in this feedback, so that you can email the feedback if you want to, you can call if you want to. If you want this ticketing system, maybe it can be an option too, but just to make sure that there are different possibilities is in itself a way to create accessibility in the feedback system.
Absolutely. We have done quite a lot of research on that and interviewed and made surveys with people with disabilities, with different disabilities across Europe. And that is one of the key messages. You said maybe you didn't have a good answer, but I think that's a perfect answer, what we call multimodality, so that you provide different channels and different ways. I think that is opening up for as many users as possible to provide feedback in their preferred mode of operation. I think that is absolutely one of the key issues. Agnes, did you have anything to add to that?
I would like to add clear instructions on who to contact as well, and to have a valid or good email address or other sort of contact, so that as a user you do not get confused. You have channels, you have mechanisms, you have modes, but you do not know who to address and for what. So I would say adding clear instructions on who, how, and what to include in your message to provide a clear and swift feedback is also crucial.
Very true. We also found that it's good to have two options. So one where you can just write whatever you like. If you don't feel that you have the technical skills or you cannot explain things well, then just say, I have a problem with this. That can be enough. If you have the time and energy, and if you know maybe what assistive technology you're using, or if you know what browser you're using, then you could also ask for that information, because that would make it easier for the website owner to fix the problem if you could provide the technical details. But many users have no clue, and then if you require them to give a lot of details, then many will shy out. So really, again, having different options, I think, is extremely important. And instructions, of course, very, 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 very important. So we have one question here: if any of you have supported public sector bodies, or I guess any organization, have you been addressed or asked to do user testing, for example, or supporting organizations in making things accessible? Agnes already said that you were involved in the university, I think.
And I was also involved in a student project with the students of computer engineering at University of Maribor, where we tested the accessibility of tourism websites for Maribor tourist destinations. And this was very interesting project, and I was glad to participate in, because they took a very detailed feedback from us, what worked, what didn't. So we were also actively included in the making of the project.
Yeah. So that's good to hear. And Jonathan, have you been involved in any similar projects, or maybe around captioning or audio things?
Yeah, on a few occasions, maybe not from public bodies specifically, but in relation to the broadcasting, the Public Service Broadcasting Corporation here in Sweden, and their web stream service. I think that kind of interviews are interesting in my opinion, but it's also sometimes coming from the outside, I also sometimes think it's hard to actually know what you should provide in terms of feedback that are valuable, because it can sometimes be so zoomed in on specific issues. I know that for one example, it was about, should we use this icon or should we use this one? What do you feel when you see this? And it can be really valuable data, but once again, it's also very hard to, as a user, to see, okay, wait, what does my input here actually lead to? And we didn't really get any response back, as I remember, either of what happened after those surveys were done also.
Yeah, the golden rule of user interaction. So provide good information, provide good feedback afterwards. What did it lead to? And pay your experts, because a person with a disability that is providing their own expertise is an expert and should, of course, be paid accordingly, just like any other IT professional. So Lydia, did you ever try on doing some user testing or something like that? Do you have any experience? Anything you want to share?
No, with us in our land, we do not. I never really have that experience because I never really got asked.
Okay, but maybe in the future, now that you are on stage, people may call you every day and ask.
maybe, and sometimes if I do not know if they call me, I'll go and find that, and I will help them to go to get it as best as they can.
I'm sure you will be very helpful. So I want to stay with you, Lydia, and ask, like, we are kind of wrapping up this this session. So if you could give, all the people that are listening today, they are designers, developers, testers, they all produce websites and apps. So if you could give a recommendation or a tip for them on what they should learn from this day and how they should start working tomorrow to build a better digital environment, what would that be?
Make it easy to read, because if you make it easy to read, people will be more interested to go and look for it. And do not make it complicated. Try your best. Simple is the best. And information should be like if you are putting something up for something, just put that up for that. Do not make it a lot of complicated. Make it accessible for everyone.
Mm-hmm. So
like the world, or just make it accessible for everyone, and make it so that everyone can be able to work together. And if you're going to put something up, try to link with somebody with an intellectual disability who will be able to guide you if it's wrong, not wrong if it's going to be easy, or how can you do it another way. Try your best to put people with disability in your website and ask them questions before you put everything up and nobody know anything.
So easy to read and one thing at a time, right? Not too complex. That means kind of a stepwise. So first say one thing and then you have another thing. So really clear. That's the essence, what I hear here. And involve people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Very good. So now everyone knows what they are going to do. If they start tomorrow, then maybe we will have a better internet in a couple of days. So Agnes, do you have something to share with our community here, the experts?
Yeah, I would like to add maybe a good solution would be to create both versions, regular versions and easy to read version, and to add a function that may connect these two versions so the user may switch from one version to another. And another thing that would be useful and very appreciative is to create fonts, text, and designs that are eyes friendly. I would say universally, not just for people with disabilities, for any users, even for elder people. Everyone needs clear and friendly design so that you can read different informations and that you know where are you at online. And also what is the first and fundamental step is to always cooperate with end users to get to know different disabilities. As I said before, in my case of cerebral palsy, people are often too ignorant of our needs because they do not know our condition. And this is why is it so important to establish a dialogue between us and them, to create a network and to share experience, to see what works, what doesn't, and to know your end users and their needs thoroughly. So I would say be proactive and create together with us, not isolated.
So collaboration, not only testing, but really listening to the users. So when you said eye-friendly, I understand that it's kind of the size of the text and also the contrast between
and
text
fonts,
and the fonts. Yeah.
everything,
Mm. So
And
everything.
also the way how text is positioned on the website. So it's not too narrow or too broad, that it's easy to read visually.
Yeah. So it should be, but also I think from a technical standpoint, it's also important that it's built in a flexible way so that people can change it, because some people
Yeah.
prefer it very narrow and some more broad. So also
Yeah.
making it possible to grow and be more narrow and so on is
Yeah.
also good for the user. So,
Exactly.
so easy, not too many things at once, eye-friendly. Now, Jonathan, is there anything left for you to say? We have gone through
My
things on the
colleagues
list.
have quite well summed up a lot of good tips for everybody. But one thing I would like to add is also that it's important to dare to try new solutions. We have on the captioning side really seen the development of automatic captioning solutions over the last few years, which have given us access to complete new arenas of the web. And it might not maybe be mainly for the public websites, but I know, for example, how it have changed how I can access, for example, YouTube videos or stuff that are not captioned as a standard. So dare to try to innovate with these kind of solutions, because when they work, they can become very important pieces of the puzzle to solve accessibility. The second and last thing I would just like to add to this is that one issue that I think that we forget sometimes, especially when it comes to audiovisual elements, meaning videos, is that you need to make the accessibility adjustments in a way that makes it possible to access more than just one solution at a time. To give you an example of this, we have had situations in my home organization at work where we have wanted to watch a video, an information video at a conference or something like that, where we had to divide up the group into different parts because the caption version was one video on the website and the sign language interpreted version was one video. And this can, of course, be a good solution from a practical manner, but for the end user, it might put new problems if the captioning and the audio descriptions cannot be turned on at the same time, for example. So see that the intersection between different accessibility means can be a really important thing to try to enhance and make sure that it's possible to use them simultaneously.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I think something that everyone working on accessibility and trying hard to meet the requirements and follow the law and all of that sometimes have difficulties understanding is kind of the overlap or the multi-layer solutions of everything, because just as your user groups have this need, people with visual impairments often, I mean, many have kind of can use a screen reader in some situations, but can magnify or maybe use voiceover in another. And it really depends on how tired you are, on what device you're on, and so on. So you need more than one access point or one way of accessing the information. And I think that goes probably for all of us, but especially if you have a severe impairment, then this becomes even more important. And it's like the laws and the standards don't really cater for this. It's more like we are trying to solve one thing at the time, but in reality, for the users, there's the environment. It's how you woke up this morning. If you are stressed, if something else is happening in around you, if you have a crazy sound environment and so on. All of this is making us more or less in need of accessibility solutions and in different solutions. So I think that's really a nice ending. And thank you, Jonathan, for being technically positive. We have sometimes been fighting a little bit about this with auto captions. Of course, they are absolutely not as good as a live captioner these days, but if we do not want to use auto captions because they are not perfect, then at least in my view, we are locking the door to many people who would prefer to have 80% captioned than nothing captioned. And that is easy when you do user testing. That is very clearly seen, but still there is a lot of pushback on the auto captions, which I'm really happy to hear that the younger generation has a clear view on this. So that is making me positive for the future. So we have reached the end of this lovely session. Thank you very much, all three of you, for being here with us today and sharing your thoughts and ideas, and I hope to meet you soon again. I'm very sure I will meet Lydia when we are in Ireland in November at least, and probably Jonathan in Sweden as well. So thank you very much and have a very nice rest of your day, and we will now move to the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.